Ready to roll?
Let's do it.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Mortgage Better with Mike Bott. And today we are not talking about mortgages. What are we talking about? I don't know. Who's this sitting next to me?
My name is Patrick McAninch. I'm the owner and operator of Max Athletic. I am a personal trainer, diet coach, and father of 3 huskies.
Nice. So you see how I had the question off air to try to pronounce your last name, and I put that all on you. I love it. I love
Absolutely.
it. And I'm Mike Bott with Mortgage Better with Mike Bott, obviously. And this is the start of a new kind of a mini-series of, small business highlights in Stockton, California. You and I are both part of BNI Gold Country, and it's really kind of opened my eyes and given us support to small businesses here in the Central Valley. And that's where I met you, and I'm actually one of your clients, which is awesome.
Yes, sir.
And that's when I thought it was going to be a great idea to get you on here, and you thought of it as well, to kind of broaden, what you actually do other than make people look like models like me. Just kidding. So why are you sitting here? What are your qualifications? What brought you into this business?
All right. So, we were talking a little bit about this before, and, when I was going into high school, I was a fat kid, and I had this mouth on me, and I knew I was going to catch a ton of, crud for being overweight. And I was going to be able to verbally defend myself, but not be able to do that physically. Like, I couldn't even do a push-up. And I was like, there's no way this is going to be a fun experience. Right. So if I'm going to be the fat kid, I'm going to be the fat, strong kid.
Okay.
So I got into the exercise part of it, and I got really strong. I, broke some long-standing high school bench press records and whatnot. But, I was never really happy with how I looked. I was that guy that wore a T-shirt to, go swimming just because, you're just really not happy or comfortable in your own skin. And I really started getting into this stuff even back in high school. I would just invite my friends over to come work out with me, train. The focus was just on, the lifting part of it. Mm-hmm. And, transitioning into college, I didn't know what I wanted to be. So, as I'm picking my general ed stuff, I saw nutrition. I was like, okay, let's take that. Then I realized, man, if I change my nutrition, I can actually look better, feel better, and perform better. And I actually lost over 100 pounds.
So back in high school, because most kids, when they hit, and this is just in my eyes, when they hit puberty, they're somewhere between 12 and 18, somewhere in that where they hit their biggest, or they hit their best when they're doing like football and stuff like that, and everything's just going crazy in their brains and everywhere else. So what was your heaviest muscle and all?
Heaviest was 280.
280.
And standing at like a whopping 5'2" and a quarter, that's kind of a lot for my frame.
You're like a cemented pylon into the ground.
Like a fire plug, yeah. Yeah. I was laughing because freshman year I was, put on the line because I was such a big guy. But then, seeing as I'm so tall, sophomore year, I was like the littlest lineman.
Gotcha.
I was small and strong and heavy, but everybody else had that growth spurt. I had mine in like middle school, right. So I was just looking around like, this is ridiculous. You could look at the line and you would see like everybody, then there's that divot on the right side guard, and that's where I was.
I wasn't going to bring up your height on this interview, so...
Well, good thing I'm seated.
I know you always bring it up in every single one of your presentations, but I love it. Own it for life.
Absolutely, man. I've tried all the stretching, and it doesn't get any better.
No heels though, right?
No heels, no. No, but it's funny because like the fashion trends are kind of like swinging back around into the 70s, so I'm waiting for the platform shoes, man, so I can get,
So you're going to get the ones with little fish in the heels?
Totally, yeah. Take my fish for a walk, break 5'5",
Gotcha.
Yeah, gotcha. World's looking up for me, man. Just waiting for that to happen.
Awesome. So as you mentioned you lost 100 pounds. Now, this is when you were starting to start that education on nutrition. Mm-hmm. And how long did that take you?
So, really, when I was looking at, because this all ties into the question of, like, what do you want to be, what do you want to do? And I was like, you know what? As a kid, I never really had anybody to help me out. So I was like, you know what? It might be nice to kind of, lend that helping hand to people in a similar situation. So I was like, I'll try to help people. So, took the nutrition course, was already working on that. But then I was like, you know what? Delta has a Peace Officer Academy, so I'll go into that.
Okay.
And I knew ahead of time, I'm not going to be one of those overweight, peace officers that, can't hop a fence or anything. I know there's going to be physical requirements asked of me. So I started the process with the nutrition course. And then it took about a year and a half. I literally remember buying this. It was like the cheapest exercise bike I could afford. It was like a Mercy exercise. And
just something, right?
Something, yeah. It was what I could afford. And then I would play my PlayStation. And it's like, here's the rule. If you're playing PlayStation, you got to be on the bike pedaling. I broke all the magnets off the inside of that thing. It was like they were rattle around in there. Man. And I kept it till the fan blades broke. It lost all resistance and had to toss it. But a little over a year and just really cleaning up my food. And even then, I didn't have a solid understanding of nutrition. It was just doing the calories in, calories out. And I was just technically on a starvation diet. So when I entered the Peace Officers Academy, I was what I refer to as skinny fat.
Okay.
I was really skinny. I lost a lot of muscle. I was able to run and had all the endurance and all the typical, back in the day measures of fitness, right? I could run, I could do some push-ups, stuff like that. But anything as far as like lifting weight or even potentially, having to like wrestle with somebody, no, there was no way. Man. Yeah.
So as you were kind of just basically the skinny fast guy, but no real muscle. Your whole goal was to lose as much fat as possible. And that's where a lot of people, at least in my eyes and my personal experience, kind of run into this. Like, hey, all I want to do is lose weight. And then you end up losing a lot more than weight. You lose that muscle mass, and then you lose that muscle strength, and then you're just, a runner. Nothing against runners. Don't want to upset them.
Yeah. No, exactly. And this all kind of goes into the being happy with how you look, feel, and perform. And, you go from one end of the spectrum, being very large and overweight, and you're like, I'm not happy with how I look, feel, and perform. So you're like, let me lose the weight. That should be good. And then you get to the other end of that spectrum. So I went from, roughly 280 to 152 at my lightest. It's like, okay, well, now I'm skinny, right? I should be super happy with everything. Well, I performed better, I looked better, but I did not feel better. Especially when you actually go to apply yourself to anything outside of like running and basic calisthenics. You're like, wow, I can't do that anymore. Especially coming from like a strong lifting background. It's like, I can't bench anywhere near what I used to. It
almost feels like you're missing something when you're out there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it felt like a solid regression, because everybody has that experience. When you start lifting, you're like, man, I'm the guy struggling to bench with 10s on the end of it, and I'm shaking, like an earthquake.
Yeah.
And then, now you're lifting, multiple plates on each side, like this is nothing, and then you lose all the weight, and then you're going back to shaking with the 10s again. It was super defeating. So really, I kicked everything into gear and just got myself very well educated and certified, and, I'm continuing to take courses on that sort of stuff so I can just learn and continue to improve my knowledge so I can basically help myself and others even more. So, just to rattle off some of the qualifications that I have, I don't even know how many nutrition certifications I have, to be honest. I have so many of them.
Is it like thousands or hundreds or tens?
Probably like tens.
Okay, cool. Yeah, but that's still a ton.
Yeah.
And it takes time to do those too, right?
Yeah.
Good.
Absolutely. So, in just one block, I think there is 12 certifications that I received from just one course, and I've taken many courses. I also, trained in multiple methodologies, CrossFit all the way to level 2, dabbling into the OPEX fitness sort of stuff.
I'm nodding my head like I know what that is.
Yeah, I could just be speaking a different language. And
pretty much.
Cool. And then, getting into some really jiggy neurological stuff too with RPR. So that's reflexive performance reset.
Okay.
So, and we can get into that later, but it almost seems like I'm doing some magical wizardry when I can just address some stuff. So, quick little side to that. One of my clients, I bumped into them the other day actually after a BNI meeting, and they're like, hey, my shoulder's bothering me. So we did a quick little test, and it was like, yeah, you have a neurological compensation pattern going on. So we just did some quick scrubbing and breath work, and then all of a sudden did the retest. Her eyes bugged out of her head, and she's like, how'd you fix me? Like, stop and explain. So then I had to explain, all that sort of stuff. So I love opportunities to nerd out on the stuff that I nerd on.
Okay, so that's crazy because I've had shoulder surgery, and I was going to about call you out. It's like, why you got to bring up shoulders for me? But I don't think I ever told you that.
No.
But yeah, the shoulder thing is, because this one was really crazy, killing me last year, and that's why I just quit and gave up, and then ballooned up again.
Yeah, and so some of it too just happens to be with looking the frame and lens that which you look at things through. So, for example, shoulder problems. So it could be a neurological problem. It could be a muscle imbalance problem. Let's treat both, right? Let's figure out what it is. And simply with that quick test for my client was like, hey, let's pick the low hanging fruit first off the tree instead of climbing up into the tree and doing all the extra work. So it's like, let's try this. And to boil down how the neurological stuff works is most of the time, especially all the personal training stuff, you look at the muscle. The muscle's the action that creates the force. That's the vehicle that creates the movement, right? But what tells the muscle to do the work comes from the electrical signal, brain, through your central nervous system out to the periphery. That's not a one-way street. That travels both ways.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the analogy that I love to use is, we all know how to get to work. We've all figured out how to get to work the most efficient and fast route from our house. What happens if you're driving to work, you're just playing it like you're about to slide in and hit the time clock right before you're late. We've never done that. And all of a sudden you get 2 streets up from where you're trying to be and there's construction. That's unplanned.
Or you got to take the next exit. It's like, oh, shoot.
Yeah. So now you're taking a less optimal route. It's adding some time. It's adding some frustration, wear and tear. Your body does the same thing neurologically. So all human movement has to come from creating force from a stable platform. That stable platform is internally. We all recognize human movement starts from the center and radiates outwards to the extremities. So when we look and we can just easily tie all movements into either a flexion or an extension pattern. So either closing the joint or opening the joint. Closing the joint tends to want to grab your psoas. That's the most efficient way to get from your...
Where's the psoas?
Psoas is going to be right on the inside of your hip, so kind of in the stomach region just a little bit.
Appendix almost? Okay.
Kind of, yeah, and it's on both sides. So your hip bone is kind of like tucked in a little bit. So it's really hard to get to. But basically... the quickest way from home to office is to the psoas, and the psoas powers all of the flexion-based movements. If that doesn't work...
This is deep, bro.
So if that doesn't work, it's like, okay, alternate route. We're rerouting to the quad. If that doesn't work, there's road construction there. We go to the tibia. If that doesn't work, then we travel all the way up to the jaw. If that doesn't work, we travel to the fist.
Wow.
And being a runner, I'm sure you've seen people when they run and they're like this like tight fist. A lot of like track and field coaches will tell people, hey, don't have a tight fist because that's actually going to affect your running. But if they're not addressing the neurological compensation pattern, when you have them relax that tight fist, they no longer have a stable platform to generate any sort of flexion-based movement. So now they've lost power. A lot of the stabilizing muscles are going to have to kick in and do secondary functions so that these small muscles that have a primary task are no longer doing that primary task of stabilizing joints.
Jeez.
Yeah, so it just becomes a mess. But we can kind of clear the obstruction in the road to make the neurological traffic have the most fast and efficient route by simply sending feedback from the other side of the road work back to the nervous system.
So you're basically, so I relate that to electricity. I should be a maintenance mechanic back in my old prior life. You're basically just kind of jumping in a sense, kind of like two cars, one's got a dead battery, one's got a roadblock, but you're kind of just jumping it from one side to the other just to get it back to where it needs to go.
Yeah. So along the electricity analogy, if we look at like the lights in this room, so you walk in to turn on the lights, you hit the switch. That's sending the electricity to the ballast. Right. So the electricity being sent to the ballast is, your nervous system sending the signal. Now, if there's no problem with the ballast, the light bulb turns on. The light bulb is the muscle. So we check that. You turn on the light switch. There's no light. Okay. Is the bulb fine? Is the ballast fine? If those are fine, the bulb would be the muscle. The ballast would be like the skeletal system. Okay. If those things are fine, then it's got to be a problem with the electricity. maybe the wiring got a short and maybe it's not getting there.
Right.
Maybe it's turning on, the blender in another office like 3 doors down. So let's just make sure that the signal is getting to the light. Now, if we check that and that's fine, then we would go and do like, hey, how's the ballast? Is the ballast fine? Now it might be a muscle.
Gotcha.
The neat thing is, when you look into like muscle testing and stuff like that, it's all very similar to the neurological test. You just extend the test and extend the pressure. So the first thing is, we go to test, for example, the flexion pattern of your leg. So, hey, can you resist? The first thing we're looking for is just a very quick noticeable, like, is there a grab in the muscle?
Okay.
When I count you down, 3, 2, 1, go, press. If it goes to grab right away, hey, there's electricity going to the right place. Now, if, after it grabs and we keep applying pressure to it, now we can say, hey, now is the correct muscle firing the way it should? Okay. Now we can look at, okay, so the muscle's firing, but does the muscle have a problem with not having enough power or endurance by extending the test and extending the pressure? So it could be as simple as just, hey, nothing's there. Hey, something's there. The electricity is getting there, but now there's a problem. We need to address the ballast. We need to address the light bulb.
Gotcha.
So
that went deep really quick, and that's called
RPR.
RPR. And then what does that stand for again?
Reflexive Performance Reset.
That's ridiculous. Because for me, if I get a cramp or something's not working right or something's even hurting, like just a massage and you're done or give it a break. But you're saying that you can find out a solution to see exactly why, just based on the reflexes and the neurological communication between that muscle and your brain.
Yeah, and all this stuff is like, so when they present the course information, I have to know the why and where it comes from, and they did not address that. So I did my own digging and found out that a lot of this stuff comes from a doctor who started figuring this stuff out in the 50s, and they actually started naming some of these points after him, Chapman reflex points.
Okay.
So he was addressing this stuff for like organ health. So there's like parts in the body that, the nervous system passes through the organ and comes out to the periphery, to the skin. And by stimulating that with like some light scrubbing, pressure, whatever, that translates back and the organ functions better because you're improving the quality of the signal. But the way the RPR guys, they viewed it through the lens of, we're working with athletes, we're working with sports, so we're not concerned, like, hey, let's fire up your kidney a little bit more. They're like, we need to make sure our athletes are able to perform at the highest quality and level of performance without risk of injury.
Yeah.
So, it all starts with the breath, but it is literally like hitting the reset button on your modem when your internet's not working, and then we can save the progress along the way. So,
well, I mean, if you use the other reset of unplugging a human being and plugging him back in, that's kind of dicey. You may not bring him back.
Yeah, that's super suspect. Yeah, for sure. So it's a huge rabbit hole of stuff that we can go down, but it's really jiggy, and it seems like magic when you do it, and literally, experiencing that stuff is a believer. It can sound very like hocus pocus, but
alternative medicine, that's gaining a lot of traction right now. And the major thing behind alternative medicine is not necessarily just a pill that they flick at you and say, take 14 times a day, and then you come back, 6 years later when all the tests are actually done and everyone has cancer. I'd rather try a couple of different ways to do it than be flicked a pill and sent on my way.
Well, and when you view the human body as we are naturally made to be in a state where we thrive.
Yep.
And we thrive in many cases despite of all the things that we do. So if you do like the basics, it allows the body to go into the thrive position, and then things just happen like magic. So weight loss, strength gain, doing this RPR, compensation imbalance reset, positional therapy sort of stuff. It's like, well, let's just stop picking the scab, so to speak. And that's a big, big rabbit hole that I've been going down lately with people. Is like, okay, hey, you have this chronic knee pain. It's actually a problem with your big toe. Let's fix your big toe, because, if you build a foundation on, shaky ground, you can expect the house to fall over, which, are you a fan of Monty Python?
No.
Okay.
I've seen it, but no. I'm not even going to try to act like it.
Well, there's an episode, there's a scene in the Knights in the Holy Grail where there's this dude who has a castle, and he's telling the story of it. They're like, they said I was daft to build a castle in a swamp, but I did it anyways. And then it fell and sank into the swamp. But the second one, that one burned down and then fell and sank into the swamp. But the third one, that one still stands. And that's what we do in so many of the cases. We're like, I have these problems, but I will do pills, I'll take extra pre-workout, I'll do all these things, but we don't address the problem.
You're just masking it. You're not fixing the issue.
In a lot of, and this sounds ridiculous, but a lot of times they're like, yeah, my back hurts when I do this movement. Stop doing the movement. It sounds like it's ridiculous, but your body needs time to heal. If you put things in the right position and you stop picking that scab and give your body time to heal, the body naturally wants to be in this thrive state, which means you're looking good, feeling good, and performing good.
Yeah,
and
you've had to tell me that in the past too, so it works. All right, so that's just one of your certifications, RPR, and how you kind of help all your clients push on, fix themselves, and be a better version of themselves, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So as a small business owner in Stockton, there's clientele everywhere. What are some of the programs that you offer? What are some of the things? Because I know I'm on remote
diet coaching.
Remote diet coaching. Okay.
Yes.
All right. And you're my coach, and you've given me I'll let you explain more of it, but I basically have a set parameters that I need to stay in throughout the day. And then what that's kind of transformed to is, hey, why don't you try this workout or add this into what you're already doing so that you can meet your goals of getting buff and hunky and modelly. So what are the program options that you offer, and how can they help your clients?
Perfect. So we'll start off covering the remote options. So the way I like to look at this is through my own struggles with weight loss and working out and stuff like that. They both work better when you do them together. So all of my programs have one element or the they have both elements in there, but it's just the difference of focusing the emphasis, more diet or more exercise or more basically getting your body in line so you're not picking the scab. So the remote diet coaching is what you're doing, where we basically do this whole intake. So it normally starts with the no sweat intro because I'm not having you do burpees or anything like that, and I don't try to sweat people on you got to buy. I want this to be mutual benefit for both of us. Like I want to make sure that I can definitely help you and that you're going to be a good fit for the program and have a wonderful experience. I would literally rather live in the back of my truck than work with people just for the money that I can't stand. So
your life would be horrible, mentally.
Absolutely.
You'd be rich, but mentally horrible.
Yeah, so if it comes to that, I would rather go without than.
Understandable.
So we do the no sweat intro, and then there's a big intake questionnaire that does have some before pictures. So just be ready for that. And then based upon that, we come up with a baseline. So I get all into the nerdy science and do all these calculations based upon your lifestyle and everything with your experiences, and we do like activity multipliers, and we figure out what science says you should be eating, but then I add in my own experience with having helped so many people and walked through this process myself, because in many times and I think we've probably had this conversation before where I'm like, hey, this is what science says you should be eating on paper, this is what you're used to eating, you're drastically under eating. We're going to jump you into the deep end of the swimming pool on first day of swim class. Like, that's not going to be a good experience. Right. So, let's kind of meet in the middle, and we can just kind of like walk both ends together. And as the body changes, so do the recommendations. So with the remote dieting, we get a little baseline, and I can work with any sort of, you could be an expecting mom, you could be in the breastfeeding phase, you could be an athlete, you can be vegan, vegetarian, keto, paleo, whatever, mixed diet. But we come up with some recommendations. I like to go with macros just because that seems to work no matter what. So
yeah, and the one thing that I love about the macros and just fitting everything in there is, while you shouldn't be just throwing it at the wall and see if it sticks into your macros, which I fall under sometimes, or I do a lot of the times, which I shouldn't be. But I mean, it's so easy to tailor three different. The three different macros, which is protein, fats, and carbs. Yeah. So those three macros, so long as it fits in there and you can plan your day out, it's so much easier than counting calories, counting every single thing else. Yeah. And there's so many different apps that you have brought over to my attention that, hey, you can find this out and see if it fits before you eat it. See if it's going to make your day, if it's going to blow out your day, and hey, breakfast and lunch, you went way over one macro, and now you have to make up for it at night by eating 3 pieces of lettuce. I mean, nobody wants that. And
No.
and the thing that's easy about in my scenario about eating within my macros is I don't feel hungry. And do you tailor that per person? And is that purposeful with the macros that you set?
It's very purposeful, and it is tailored to each person. The beautiful thing about working with people is we all have things that work for us. And I could create the most perfect plan on paper, but that's not going to do anybody any good if you can't stick to it. So that's where a little bit of like the artistic touch from my experience in actually getting to know my clients comes into play. So, the first couple weeks is really just about getting to know who I'm working with, because the approach that I take with you is not necessarily the same approach that I take with my other clients. When I look at it at the end of the day, my job as a coach is to coach you towards success. So if you respond to, a different sort of coaching style, I adapt that to you. And a lot of it is just finding out, most people are already doing a lot right with their diet. Let's lean into that.
Yes.
And then let's slowly start working on the things that they're not doing as optimally as they should to get to the point to where everything starts to align. Yep. And then all of a sudden the magic happens. And then, you're like really feeling yourself in the mirror, after your shower in the morning. You're like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So. No, that's one of the biggest things. So it's taken me, well, and granted, when I came to you, I was just like, I'm just done looking like this. And Thanksgiving's coming up, Christmas is coming up, New Year's coming up, and let's just say everyone loves those time frames just because of the food. And it's like, I need to grab control of this damn bus before it runs over me. It's like a triple bendy bus kind of thing. I don't want to be underneath that crap. So good, kudos to you on that. And then, so when you do the assessments and when you measure progress for your clients, and this is, I know how you do it with me, just basically measurements and weight, but how do you do the emotional part of that measurement and what's really triggering them to do better on themselves?
So in many cases, it's just, well, I'll start off like this. Our self-talk to ourselves, we say things to ourselves that is far worse than we would ever say to our worst enemies. If we can't be our own supporter or at least civil to ourselves, it just becomes a miserable process. When you're on the journey of losing weight and starting that process, you're not in the best spot mentally and emotionally anyways. Like, you're just not happy with how you look, feel, and perform. So we tend to over-focus on the things that we're doing poorly and not recognize the things that we're doing well. And we tend to set these big expectations because we've been constantly bombarded with, biggest loser, can I lose 60 pounds in 30 days sort of stuff.
And how healthy is that?
It is terrible for you. All that stuff is gimmicky.
It shocks your entire body.
It's people actually have worse health outcomes doing that sort of stuff because it's like putting a Band-Aid over a broken bone. You're not actually fixing any of the root causes. Our process is slower, and that's purposeful because when the body loses weight, the body does not view it as, fat and lean muscle. The body views it as mass. So anytime you lose or add, you're adding fat, muscle, and skeletal tissue. If we say, you can keep it to 2 pounds a week or less, you're losing predominantly from body fat. Okay. So you're maintaining more lean muscle and skeletal tissue. That's what we want.
Gotcha.
Because nobody wants to end up being like, well, I'm skinny, but now I'm skinny fat. Like, I just, look like I have never seen a cheeseburger before. And that's another part of the program, too, that I just want to hit on is, so many people look at it as, well, I can never have this stuff again. Incorrect. 80% of the time, your meals are boring, lunch, breakfast, dinner throughout the week anyways. 20% is where we really live life. And a long time ago, I had to choose, it's like, hey, if I'm given the choice of give up pizza forever or have abs, pizza all day. Abs aren't worth it. And I will tell you, as a fat kid, the first time that I had abs, I was like, this is amazing. And then I sat down and realized that you could be super jacked, but when everybody sits down, especially when you hunch forward,
They all look the same. They all get covered.
Yeah,
it just folds over.
I was like, there's rolls, but I have abs. Stand up, abs. Sit down, rolls.
Just eliminate all the chairs from your house, from your
just
pool.
never sit, bro. Just never sit.
Lay or stand.
Yeah, you gotta sit back. Suck everything in. But yeah, so but another thing that I wanted to touch on too is I do offer remote personal training. It's not like any of that Zoom sort of stuff. Literally, I create a custom program for my clients based upon what they have access to, their goals, and what's going to be realistic. Because just much like the diet, I can create the perfect plan, but it does no good if it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
So we just create, a sustainable plan. So it could be as short as 20 minutes a day. It could be, 2 hours a day, just kind of depending upon where you're at.
And I think that's a really good point to put, because let's say you've got a client who has never worked out in any time or any portion of their life other than high school, and they're now, let's say, close to 40s. I'm almost 35. You're somewhere in the later 30s.
Yes. Yeah.
But let's say if you find that client who's just sick of looking at themselves, maybe 50 pounds overweight, when you tell them, it's like, yeah, if you just put 20 minutes a day towards this goal, you can realistically lose how much in how many months?
So if we're going by, best case scenario is 2 pounds a week, you just do the multiplication on that. So, what would that be at the top end? 8 pounds a month. So
Jesus.
And and if you do it correctly too, and this is a big hurdle that people need to get over, is and like you had mentioned it too, and we've had discussions about this. When you step on the scale, everybody judges their self-worth based upon the scale.
Yep.
The scale is a blunt measurement. It's not telling you all the change. So you look at like a pound of fat, and it takes up so much space, and a pound of muscle is like a tiny little fillet.
Right.
So you're doing this stuff 20 minutes a day. You might add a couple pounds of muscle as you're losing the 2 pounds of fat. So, the scale is going to tell you, well, you didn't really do all that good, but underneath the hood, you're making these changes. So, like, one of my clients, I got to brag about this dude, 423 pounds to start. Checked in today, I think he was 236.
So 423 to 236, almost, what's that math there?
Oh, dude, I'm not a mathematician.
Like 50%,
yeah.
Loss, or 100%? I don't know. That's a lot of poundage to lose.
Yeah.
And how long has he been with your program?
So we've been working together for a year. He had already started the process before.
But shoot, that's more than 10 pounds a month.
Yeah. And what ends up happening too is the heavier you are, when you look at percentages, the percentages like 1% of 400 is a lot bigger of a number than 1% of 100.
Yeah.
So, when you look at that sort of stuff too, and a lot of people that have a lot of weight to lose will have a lot of success up front, and as the weight starts to come off, the rate of loss starts to slow down, and then that becomes a big hurdle to jump mentally, because you're like, well,
it was working so good when I started, and now I'm only losing a half pound a month, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Not maybe that drastic, but it's like you mentioned, it's all percentages. Well, yeah, but you're quite literally half the person you were, and now so that percentage is going to equal a different dollar amount or poundage on that scale.
And with the whole like reframing, like we started to talk about, is noticing the small things and focusing on the small wins. Because, the analogy I use all the time is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
True.
How many grains of sand make a heap? How much of that heap before it becomes a mound? How much, and if you just keep adding to that and focusing on the small wins, just mentally, it just keeps you going, because that's the big thing. If we see success and we see progress, we will keep doing the things that we need to do to see it. It's just, when we're looking at the big losses and we're not seeing them, it becomes very easy to get discouraged. And that's happened to myself many times, many of my clients. So that's one of the things I try to do, is point out your wins. We're all much harder on ourselves than we are to anybody else. And sometimes it becomes hard to see the changes. You're going to be the last person to notice your success, especially because you see yourself every day.
True.
But if I don't see you more than once a week, I'm going to notice that pound you lost like right away. I'm going to be like, dude, you working out or something? And you're, meanwhile, you're just like, what are you talking about, dude? I'm not happy with my progress. So I just constantly try to highlight the successes as they're happening, noticing the small wins. And us human beings, we love to like, okay, I've mastered this small win. I stop paying attention to it. A lot of the biggest success in the waistline starts with the mindset change.
Oh, yeah.
So reframing things and calling out the wins and focusing on that. And this sounds ridiculous, and I'm not the guy that believes in like the secret and, you know, manifest destiny, but literally you do get more of what you focus on.
True.
And, you know, even if that is not scientifically accurate, if you're on the process anyways, it's better to be on the process and be happy and positive on the process than be on the process and be negative. So let's focus on the wins. Let's give some people some recognition, because losing weight, working out, changing your body and your lifestyle is not easy.
No.
And it goes unrewarded. You know, we're all in the social media age where we just want to see somebody's 10-second TikTok of they went from 423 pounds to, you know, 200 pounds and they're super buff. Nobody wants to see the years of hard work and
or
all
the hours. So one thing that really gets me is, you know, a partner, spouse that you're living with, or even boyfriend, girlfriend, and you guys are living together, even out, the peer pressure that really gets you, you know, because it happens a lot in my house. Hey, you know what sounds great? Taco truck, or, you know, that they got a beer open. I'm just like, oh, that looks so damn good. And that peer pressure is just what that separation anxiety as you're eating a salad, or you're eating, you know, a turkey meal prep with some brown rice, and they're smothering down a burrito with carne asada and extra sauce, it's bad.
Hey,
so you gotta focus on the good stuff, even though you're missing out on some other stuff here. But like you said, that's only 80% of the time that I gotta not starve myself, but, you know, hey, monitor what you eat, make sure it fits in there, and if you have a couple of slip ups, like I did 2 weeks ago, it's completely fine.
Yeah, it's just, as long as we're not repeating the pattern.
Yes.
So you could have like a major blowout, you know, dude, like I was just in my emotions, you know, I crushed, you know, a burrito and some nachos, you know, hey, whatever, you know, and I threw in some, you know, froyo on top of that, you know, had some beer. It's like, okay, cool, you know, sometimes along the process we have to recharge our emotional energies and just get our mind right. You know, many of us, especially being overweight, we tend to comfort with food. So, you know, we have those moments, and a one-off is not the end of the world. It might set you back, you know, a couple days, whatever, but once you just get back on track, we start making process. So you realize, like, hey, I can still have success. You know,
and I don't mean to interrupt you there, but along that same mental mind-blanking process is, you know, let's say, like with me, I'm on the process, I'm on the journey, you know, few months in compared to whatever I've done in the past. I'm eating that bowl of ice cream, and it suddenly doesn't taste as good as I thought it would.
Yeah.
And that is when, like, it switches on me. It's like, hey, I love ice cream, I love Oreos, but these things ain't hitting as hard, and I don't know why. I'm not losing my taste. I don't have COVID for sakes. But at the same time, it's just like, this is too much. This is not what my body needs. And then I actually physically feel ill afterwards because it was too much.
So that's a beautiful point that people are just unaware of. And I always give the analogy of the scented candle. You know, you light the scented candle, the first thing you're like, holy lavender. And then 10 seconds later, you're like, is it on?
Yeah.
You leave the room, you come back in, you're like, oh, there's the lavender. You know, it's like if the check engine light comes on in your body and you're not actually stopping your car to get service, your brain just puts that electrical tape right over it. You know, it's not a problem.
Which is not good for your car, and it's not good for your body.
It is not good for your car or your body. But, you know, the process, when you start removing a lot of the processed foods and sugars and whatnot, your body becomes resensitized. Yeah. So we don't realize how much additional sweetening that happens. I remember the first 30 days after I strictly cleaned up my diet, I was rushing to work, super late, and I was like, dude, I forgot to bring my food. Hey, I'll stop at a fast food place, right?
I hate doing that.
Walked into one, you know, ordered, you know, the double meat, you know, whatever, lettuce wrap, took a bite of it, and I was like, they sweetened the meat. This is disgusting. Yeah. So I threw it out, went across the street, got another. They did the same thing. I was like, this is ridiculous. You know, I'm the guy now that, you know, I used to be, you better cover that barbecue and Sweet Baby Ray's to, like, just leave it. Like, it's way too much.
Yeah,
so
just the regular seasoning.
And, you know, you also made a point, too, like, the feeling, you know, hey, I don't realize how bad this stuff makes me feel. And eventually you get to the point to where you're aware of that, and then it becomes easier to make better health decisions when it comes to food, because you're like, while that does look delicious, I know how I'm going to feel tomorrow. So, for example, if you're like, come have, this Little Caesars pizza, I'm going to be like, not for that. If I'm going to have pizza, it's going to be high quality pizza.
It's like gourmet.
Yeah, we're going like deep dish, Chicago style. Like, I'm going to go super fat kid on this, because if I'm going to pay the price physically for it, then I'm going to enjoy
make it worth it.
Yeah. So, and being in, doing what I do, people are like, oh, you got to check this out. Here's a healthy pizza. I'm like, I'm not into it. I mean, healthy pizza, with the cauliflower. Hey, if that's what you're into, good, but don't try to like trick me. Like, come over, we're having pizza, and then try to make me a healthy pizza. Because in my mind, I'm like, we're going hard on pizza, so it's got like
it's going to be original, regular, glutinous,
all the
deliciousness.
glutens, all like extra gluten. If I could sprinkle some gluten on top, let's go.
That is probably what makes the best pizza crust.
Yeah.
Can you outwork your diet? I think that one's kind of. I mean, what is your opinion on that? Like outworking your diet. Let's say I'm a complete gym rat, and my version of gym rat was, I went to the gym 1 hour a day, and I either did cardio or I did weights or I did a combination of the both, not really heavy in both. And I eat a good healthy breakfast, egg white scrambled, a piece of rotisserie chicken, and some brown rice for lunch. And then in the afternoon, I eat taco truck, my favorite. Yeah. and is there a possibility that a normal Jane or Joe who goes to work in an office a day, or who works construction or something like that, can they outwork their diet?
Good luck. Not in an hour a day. I mean, even if you're doing the most intense, hardcore CrossFit workout, most people simply cannot do that. I know I tried to outrun my diet, and it turns out I was more successful chasing down the ice cream truck than I was running away from the fat.
At least you're burning some calories, right?
Yeah, But, to look at this, I had this infographic that I would send to my clients every now and again, where it's like, hey, how many burpees would it take to burn off a small fries from your favorite fast food restaurant? And one, everybody loves burpees, but when you're looking for a small fry is like 512 burpees. Having done 500 burpees before, I could say it's just easier to not have the small fry. Jeez. Like, let's clean up the diet. And, I'll throw this out there too, people, because I hear this all the time, but I'm a foodie. I really enjoy food. Well, when people go to like a, Prime Table, for example, you spend $60-$70 on this, beautiful steak and some veggies and maybe like a potato on the side. Wouldn't it be killer to eat like that most of the day? Because that's basically what I do. It's not the same quality, but you go to the store and you do like some lazy meal prep, or, you get the chicken or steak or whatever. That's what the majority of my meals look like. So I like really good, high quality food. And you can incorporate that into your day-to-day life to where, you should be pretty much eating like a king or queen, and it's also getting you closer to your goals.
Gotcha.
Most of the time I look at people that are like, oh, I'm a foodie, but then they go eat some like trash can burger, and I was like, dude, that doesn't.
I don't think that's a foodie, because I mean, you go to any restaurant and you get a burger. Yeah. There's going to have the good burger and a bad burger, but I mean, as a foodie portion, are you just counting the amount of fat grams in that to consider it a foodie burger, or just the flavor sauce that they tossed on it?
It's probably just like the sauces, but.
Because I completely agree with, the vegetables and eating clean, and a true foodie was going to figure out the difference between a flash frozen piece of broccoli and one that was fresh, organic, and picked yesterday.
And it's probably just people misusing the term foodie, but that's something I hear all the time.
I think we're all foodies if we have to eat it to survive. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I forgot where I was going with that. Oh well.
It's all right. ADHD brain over here, so completely understand. All right, so I've got a couple last questions. We already kind of went over, how to pick up a client when they're down, encourage them to get back on the horse to keep going. What is the most fun and probably the worst part about being a personal trainer?
Same answer, people. Oh, man. So, the best part is getting to be part of their success.
True.
So I just had a client yesterday tell me that some of the prehab rehab work that I've just been assigning to them, that they've been doing it on their own because it actually makes them feel so much better.
Awesome.
celebrating their successes. Or my other client that I just shared on social media, was training with me in person, fighting me on the diet part of it, finally realized, took this little $25 diet on-ramp course that I had this breakthrough, lost 10 pounds. That stuff keeps me going.
Yeah.
But at the other end of it, being a personal trainer kind of is almost like being somebody's therapist. So I get to carry their emotional baggage and wade through some of the stuff. And I mean, working with people in their diets, they will share things with me that they don't even share with their significant others, because this stuff we carry is so deep within us that we're just frankly afraid and embarrassed to, hey, I'll tell you right now, at my heaviest, I ate my emotions. I ate out of boredom. And then when I started really putting on the weight, then I started feeling bad, then I would eat because I felt bad.
So you're telling me that you are the exact phrase that came out of Fat Bastard's mouth at Austin Powers. Yeah. I eat because I'm unhappy, and I'm unhappy because I eat, and which is true. I remember watching that when I came out, and I was like, man, I kind of hit home a little bit. It's supposed to be a freaking comedy.
Dude, yeah, exactly.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle. So, dealing with that can be a lot, and I always really want to make sure all my clients are successful. So I take a lot of that on, personally. I don't want to let anybody down. So, when they're in their down moments, I'm like right down there with them. So I get to live the highs and the lows with people. And, as you've experienced and we all experience on this journey, there's a bunch of highs and lows on the changing your health and fitness and your lifestyle. So that would be the best and worst is both the same thing. It's the people and walking that journey with them, because I'm not the type of dude to, shout at you from behind the desk to do more. I'm out there with you like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
I don't have anybody do anything that I haven't done personally and wouldn't be willing to do. And even my workouts, I'll come up with these workouts and I'll go test them out. And I have a couple clients that have been with me for a while. So I'll have them beta test stuff with me. And we'll get into this leg work. And I'm like, looking at way overdid it. We're not going to do that. Both of us can't, walk right for a couple days.
Yeah.
So it's like, let's tone that down a little bit. Yeah. So, most of my clients will get the polished versions of that, because I've gone through the pain of, dropping my keys and being like, it's too painful to go pick up my keys. I guess I don't need to leave the house today.
So not only are you the guinea pig, but you're in the trenches with the clients. And I think that's probably what makes me feel so good about having you as my coach, not necessarily my trainer, but you're also training me too. So my coach and trainer is you're saying from experience, this is what worked with me. This is what worked with many of the clients that you've had, and maybe you should give it a try, because I'm not giving it to you because it's bullshit, plain and simple.
Yeah, absolutely. There is so much bullshit in the fitness industry. And half the time, I have to fight against. It's the battle of the bullshit. It's like, hey, the gimmicks, the detox teas, the wraps, all that stuff.
Ozempic.
It frustrates me to no end. But at the same time, you just can't be the person that just goes and rants and is like, I hate all this stuff. It's garbage. Because so many people are sold on this stuff when they come to you, and they're either looking for validation or they're really confused and they just need somebody to guide them.
Yeah.
Which is why I try to be their guide to fitness, because I'm like, dude, I've tried that. I've bought so many fitness gadgets and tried so much, whatever. And I was like, hey, this stuff can get you some results in the short term, but one, is it viable? Is it sustainable? And is it the best thing for you? And more than likely, I've tried it, read about it, or, know somebody who has tried it, and it's like, let's do the things that are going to be really meaningful and impactful.
Cool. Okay. And then, so if I'm a prospective client, I'm watching this, and I'm really liking what I hear, and I want to try to do what Mike Bott is doing and getting thinner, trimmer, modelier. How would they go about finding, your services?
Well, first they need to get a modeling agent, because, clearly you're setting the bar very high.
Yes!
So, best thing to do is to reach out to me, social media, Max Athletic, MAX Athletic. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook, even on YouTube. And then just, you can send me a direct message.
Awesome.
We can start the process of doing a no-sweat intro where, we can do phone call, Zoom call, FaceTime, whatever ends up working best for you. Because really, I do this job to help people, so I want to get to know the person. And if I can't help you, I will literally recommend you to somebody that I think can.
Awesome.
And that always surprises people because I'm literally turning away money. But you know what? If I don't feel that it's going to be the best fit, then hey. But if we are going to be a good fit, I can help direct you to one of my services that I think is going to get you more in alignment to your goals specifically with what you need to do, and just kind of facilitate that process.
Awesome. So Max Athletic on Facebook, on Instagram. We could even Google that.
Yes, sir.
Right? Google that shit. We already said shit. Who cares?
Yeah, we're cussing now, so you know.
Well, awesome. Patrick, thank you so much for coming on here. Again, this is Mortgage Better with Mike Bott. Today, we're not talking about mortgages, but getting, our bodies in a better way where we're physically fit, mentally fit, because, everything down here goes right back up there.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Any closing thoughts?
I could probably look up a quote really fast. Or maybe I can't look it up really fast, but I will do anyways. We'll just stall a little bit.
If it's Verizon, reception sucks here.
Oh. Okay, so this is, we'll go back to this. Your waistline follows the lead of your mindset. You want to thin out your waistline, change your mindset and your relationship with food. You don't have to punish yourself or give up eating the things you enjoy. Just start viewing food as fuel, not comfort. Address your emotions without using food or drugs, and watch your waistline shrink.
Love it. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. All right. Talk to you guys soon.